My Energy is putting the I back into British innovation. My Energy is putting the I back into inventing the future. My Energy is putting the I back into inspiring a nation. Recharging the world with green, smart energy. Charge your EV with your PV and more. Visit myenergy.com and help to spark the green revolution. My Energy, driving the charge to a greener future.
As many of you will know, my entry into the electrification sector was, well, how can I put it, not really planned. And over the decade or so that I've been knocking around here, I really can't believe how much the sector has grown. Every day it amazes me at how many career directions and opportunities there are available. But if you're looking to get into this specific sector, where do you start? Wouldn't it be useful if there was just one place you had to go to see what opportunities there are out there? Well, that's what today's episode is about. It's something a little bit special. I'm here with David Hunt and Stephen Robinson from Hyperion Cleantech Group to welcome them to the Fully Charged family and announce that we've teamed up with them to help make getting a job in this industry maybe just a little bit easier. So, welcome to Fully Charged and welcome to Fully Charged Recruitment. David and Stephen, I'm so excited about this. This is an idea that I'll tell you what, this goes along with electric flight. The two things that I could not see 10 years ago was this fully charged recruitment and flying electric planes. You know, they're both the most extreme examples. But before our audience come to the same conclusion that I've finally lost it, I'll let you introduce yourselves and tell us why you're here. That's very cool. That was written for me, that bit. But I also agree with it. So, David and Stephen, explain about Cleantech recruitment.
Cool, yeah. So I spent much of my early career in recruitment and helping people to get careers in various different technologies around the world, which is all good and fun. And then in 2007, I actually stumbled across this mad thing called solar power and clean tech, and actually stopped my recruitment career and built a solar business in the UK and fell in love with clean tech and everything that was possible. That said, I always still had this yearning to continue with helping people and careers and that side of things. And I created Hyperion Executive Search in 2014 to help people find careers purely in clean tech.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the nature of that is, or fortunately, unfortunately, it specializes in executive and quite senior level roles. And invariably, those clients are paying a lot of money and they want to have people that are off the shelf, so to speak. And so all the time we were frustrated by there's lots of people that we couldn't help. There's lots of people that want to get into the sector that don't know where to start. Lots of people in sunset industry like oil and gas and automotive. Well, how do we get into this wonderful clean tech arena? Oh. So in discussions with you guys and with Dan, and we decided to create Fully Charged Recruitment to firstly help grow the businesses that you feature and that we will know that are building their businesses. So they need talent to grow. And importantly, where do individuals go? Back to your point, to find a career in this sector. So we're helping people, or the plan is we'll be helping people to elevate their careers in clean tech. And if you're an outsider of that sector now and you want to get in, where do you go? Hopefully we'll be able to help those people too.
Right. And Stephen, I mean, what's your how did you get into this area and what's your journey in this one?
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned 10 years ago, you couldn't imagine a venture like this actually taking off. It was almost just on 10 years ago, in fact, that I cut my teeth and fell into the recruitment industry. Right. So spending many years recruiting for the global energy companies of the world, from the UK to Kazakhstan to Saudi Arabia, the Far East, everywhere.
Dirty oil businesses.
The dirty oil business. The dirty oil businesses, Spent 2 years in the Middle East recruiting for, it's best if we don't name them, but recruiting for the big oil businesses. But always had a passion for clean tech. Had a family of petrol heads, working for Ford, Jaguar, Land Rover in the industry for many years. And it must have been about 2016, came back to the UK and was recruiting for, we set up an automotive business and was recruiting for the luxury OEMs of the world and started to see the big premium manufacturers talking about the shift to electrification. Fast forward a couple of years later, David and I, we connected, we met a couple of times, and just on 3 years, in fact, today, I joined Hyperion, and the rest history, I suppose. As David said, we're passionate about enabling the clean energy and the mobility transition, and for us, what Hyperion does brilliantly is that C-level, VP level, head of level, executive search hires. But it shouldn't stop there. For us, it shouldn't stop there. We want to get more and more people into the sector, whether that's people who have had a taste for it for a couple of years, or whether that's people who are chomping at the bit to get into the sector. And that's where Fully Charged came. How can we help, and how can we drive this transition quicker?
Because it's such a big transition. It affects so many different people, and also there is such a pressure on finding people to work for you. I think it's that. I'm guessing it's that way round at the moment. That there's lots of companies who really need qualified engineers, electricians, people who understand the systems that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, there's been such a transition economically over the last few years, and now I won't say it's easy, but the startups that we work with and that you feature on the episodes, there's an abundance of money because everybody knows that this is a transition which isn't stopping. This is, we're well past the tipping point. All these things are growing. So there's an abundance of money for startups to help them to scale, but there's not an abundance of talent. Of people who can fulfill these jobs. And no matter how much money you've got in the bank, if you don't have the right people doing the right things at the right time, your business is stymied. So you look at fast growth. I mean, people like My Energy, for example, that you featured on the channel a few times, and massive growth as a business, but in headcount as well. And they, along amongst many of other clients, really struggled to find people who have the requisite skill sets or experience.
Right. Because that's got to be, I mean, that's, not necessarily in your bailiwick is the training, but that's a very important thing, but that experience. But I mean, presumably there are sort of the equivalent of apprenticeship roles within companies where if you've got a basic training in, I say, plumbing or as an electrician, could you learn on the job? I mean, is that something that you could find a role for someone in that area? I
mean, potentially there are some of the big corporates, again, who do have apprentice schemes on can bring on mass, like you say, blue collar work, tradespeople, electricians, chippy sparks, who can adapt and sort of learn how to install EV chargers or solar panels, for example. But there's a real gap. There isn't any education. There aren't any particular courses. There aren't any particular types of roles that will enable somebody. For example, if they've been a project manager in a telecoms company for 4 or 5 years and want to do something more impactful, there's no obvious way to transition from that to Cleantech, and that's one of the gaps that we face, really.
Right, and is that something you can deal with as a company? You can Fully Charged Recruitment say to someone in that role, why don't you come and work for this, solar company or battery storage company? And
definitely. I think if we look at the nascent EV sector, for example, it's very rare that you see a veteran with 10 years plus working in EV infrastructure. Those people are hard to come by, and we spend an awful lot of time working with our clients to look at those transferable skills. So, putting a 5G mast in the ground, the civils, the commissioning, the electrical works of that process of a complex deployment like that isn't too dissimilar to putting a DC fast charger in the ground. So it's how can we encourage more of our clients to look broader and cast the net further afield, I suppose.
Because that's, I mean, you've been in specialist recruitment, as you were saying earlier on, David, with sort of the executive level people. So then I think this is what I want to make very clear is, the business is involved. You're not going to go, I don't know, you could go and work for I saw a solar farm on my way here. You could ask them, you actually know you've got contacts with all those companies. You're already working with them effectively.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Hyperion Cleantech group was exactly that, set up always to be since 2014, exclusively working in Cleantech. We've got a wealth of clients globally. We've got coverage. We've got a business in Germany. We've got a business in the US. So we work pretty much across the whole of the Northern Hemisphere.
Right.
So we've got contacts in all of those areas, and also with a lot of the VCs that fund these organisations. So we know where the money's coming in and who needs help and where to expand. So absolutely, we've got a head start in terms of we know the sector. We've lived and breathed this for a number of years now. So.
And I mean, for people who are thinking about getting into it, Stephen, the work. I had a really good example here yesterday. So I've just had ground-mounted solar put in. There were 6 guys here yesterday for a short time because they were all coming to see. We split a water pipe. It's boring. When we drill, when I say we, I watched as they drilled one of the ground screws in, and it went through a water pipe that I'd put in, but I put it in 20 years ago. Disaster. Took a bit of time to sort that out, but so they were all laughing quite a lot. But what I know is that company, just Joju Solar, who we've also featured on the show, have got so much work. I mean, this is the thing, is that it's kind of hard if you're outside the bubble that I know I exist in and try not to.
Yeah.
there's a staggering amount of this work going on. It's not like there's definitely not a shortage of work. It's the exact opposite.
The exact opposite. And I think, if you want to break into the sector, ultimately you've got to be proactive. I've got friends who are, long-standing electricians, highly skilled, and they're starting to take courses in EV installation now because there's just so much work and not enough talent. Again, I always encourage people, because we get approached daily in terms of, people working in traditional automotive or oil and gas who want to break into greener, cleaner industry. You've got to put yourself out there, whether that's, shameless plug here, but whether that's attending Fully Charged live events outside and seeing the companies that are innovating.
They're all going to be there.
They're all going to be there. So getting to the events and putting yourself about and finding out, more about the latest technologies, and then understanding where your skill sets could fit in.
I think that's one of the key things we've done, and we've spoken at Fully Charged events in the past, is how can you draw the dots or connect the dots between what you've done and where that's useful into the clean tech sector. And that's, again, something from an educational perspective through Fully Charged Recruitment we're doing, obviously, in terms of practically helping as many people as we can into the sector, but also signposting or giving people that kind of advice on how can you take the steps that you need to take to get into the sector. And I guess to get onto your point before, a lot of our clients for whom we're recruiting CFOs or country directors immediately then say, right, now we need to build this other bit of the team underneath.
Right.
And that's where the real push came to obviously work with yourselves to say, well, we can do this through this Fully Charged recruitment business. So all of the team that sits beneath the executive level, all incredibly important roles, all incredibly exciting, fast growth roles, but companies are struggling to find the people. So
and I mean that. So because I think I jumped to the exact opposite end of the spectrum from the CEO, the CFO to literally a guy that does wiring, which is still very, very important, and we definitely need those who can But there are sort of a huge range of jobs in the middle of management jobs, of technical engineering jobs that logistics, all that stuff. Presumably, there's a lot of demand for people in all those fields.
Absolutely right. They're across disciplines, Steve, isn't it? It's finance, operations, sales, commercial, project management. All these disciplines are applicable to businesses to grow, and you need all of those disciplines to grow. And that's again on the upside. That means that whatever you're doing now, if you manage your situation right, and if you really want to get into the sector, you can utilise those skills. It's finding the right place, and clearly that's what we hope to help people to do.
So we spoke recently to Simon Gallagher from eSmart Networks, and they design and build big EV charging infrastructure. And Simon was saying that the demand for skilled roles in this line of work is phenomenal. So that's a good, like a genuine quote from someone who works in that field. Yes. Do you need any people to work in your field? Yes.
Yeah, well, we've worked for eSmart Networks.
Right, yes.
But no, absolutely. I mean, all businesses, and going back to, Fully Charged in Farnborough, which we were fortunate to get to, obviously, last year in between all the COVID stuff going on. So many of the companies there are clients and people we know, and all of them, pretty much without exception, are growing and hiring.
Right.
We're trying to.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you're at school or university, you're studying something in the kind of in the broadest sense of the term, the sort of engineering, science engineering, technical skills. What advice would you give them now if they are thinking, what are we going to do? Because I didn't go to university, so I don't know, but I've been to an event where there was like big oil companies, the army, with the recruitment things, big car companies, in an engineering thing, and that's presumably now. In that, if there was an event like that now, there would be offshore wind, there would be solar farms, there would be, national grid, people like that would definitely be looking for staff.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges, those milk rounds or those type of university gigs were predominantly around corporate, so British Gas, but even into the clean tech sector, people like Ørsted, these big organisations will certainly be there and have a plan and a programme. Right. The issue is so many of the companies in the clean tech sector are startups and young, small companies. Right. They can't afford to compete with Procter & Gamble or PwC for talent. So what I would say is, and Steve picked up on, you've just got to be a bit more proactive around thinking about which element of the business you might want to get into, and then just learning about it. Clearly obvious things, listening to podcasts, attending the shows, just putting yourself and doing as much investigation as you can, because there aren't too many courses which make you a perfect project manager for EV charging infrastructure, for example. So it's, and I'm sure it'll evolve, and we've talked already about helping graduates in a future iteration of the business, working more towards graduates, but it's kind of one piece at a time. But there's, it's really just connecting the dots and really thinking that most companies who are hiring aren't big corporates yet.
Yeah, right.
And not everybody wants to work for Shell New Energies or whoever, and not saying there's anything bad with that, but some people want to work for a pure play Cleantech company, and that's most of our clients, really.
Right. Well, that is very interesting. And you did mention it before, but I just wanted to really underline that we're not just talking about the UK. So it's UK, Europe, and the US. Would that cover the majority of the work that you do?
It is presently. With Fully Charged Recruitment, we'll start in the UK and Europe, mainland Europe. We've got obviously good wealth of customers and clients right the way across Europe, and obviously looking forward to being at the Fully Charged event in Amsterdam later in the year. Hope to coincide with Fully Charged in San Diego. We'll probably launch the US business then.
Right. Oh, that's good. That's very exciting. So it's worth our American listeners
staying in touch,
checking that out and staying in touch. Yeah. So okay. That's the kind of basic background. So if you are interested, then what do you do now? How can you go and how do you get in touch? How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can register your interest. So we've got the Holden page live, the website. So we'll share details on this, but you can send your CV to us. You can get in touch. We're just building out the social media platforms, which should all be live across Instagram, across Twitter, across Facebook. Possibly launching YouTube as well, getting more vlogs and so on, and careers advice out to those that we mentioned about trying to get into and break into the sector. But the Holden page
is www.fullychargedrecruitment.com.
All one, and Fully Charged Recruitment, all one word, lowercase, blah blah blah. Yeah.
So you can register your interest there, and obviously we'll send you details as things go live and newsletters and all. But hopefully by the middle of March we'll be up and running fully. Originally to coincide with the launch at the Fully Charged event, but we've already got clients and kind of knocking on the door saying, when are you going to start?
Oh, really? That is very yes. Because I remember when we first talked about this, you were saying that it's not, you're not that worried about effectively opening the shop and no one comes in. It's more likely you've got the shop ready and there's already a queue outside.
It's a bit like Boxing Day sales. We're going to open the doors soon, we promise. But
so and then I'm just seeing the news. So they'd get a newsletter. I mean, that quite a good thing. I think is. Maybe if you're in second year at uni or you're in the sixth form at school and you're kind of interested in this area, and if there's a newsletter, there's some newsletters I get that are really annoying and I unsubscribe. There's some newsletters I get that this is so brilliant because I'm just keeping update. I'm not going to necessarily act on any of it, but they've done that. I didn't know they were doing that. Oh, they've expanded here. Those little bits of news. So you will be sending out a regular newsletter then.
Yeah, we do that. I mean, we try and make it a combination of industry news so people can keep in touch with relevant investments and trends within the market. Where's what stuff's going on? But equally, on the flip side of career advice. So where can you go? What can you do? How can you make your CV look more appealing? How can you stand out to recruiters or companies? So a lot of career advice as well as a lot of industry advice. Try and amalgamate that into something which is quite interesting, hopefully. And so it should help people in their journeys.
Right. And I mean, I think an interesting point that's been in the news a lot here recently with inflation figures and with, I've got a feeling that if you applied for a job 2 years ago, it would be X amount per month. And if you applied for the same job now with the same company, it would be X plus Y. It would be, I mean, have we seen even sort of early stage recruitment jobs, the wages increase?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges Steve has with his team currently is educating people that, in particular in future mobility or e-mobility, the demand is so high. It's a typical supply demand thing. So salaries have really gone through the roof, which is a challenge because you're effectively needing to pay potentially over market rate. But such is the demand, which is why one of the other factors we say, well, cast the net wider, look at people with those transferable skills. Don't always look for a ready-made person. Hyperion, we do that and we're great at it and it works for us, but it doesn't help the industry to grow.
Yeah.
So we need more and more people to get into the sector, and obviously that's part of the plan through Fully Charged Recruitment. But salaries are escalating.
Well, because that was a thing I heard anecdotally, so I don't know how accurate it is, but it sounded plausible that there was someone who had worked for a long time in offshore oil and gas in the North Sea, had pulled out of it because of age and family connections and everything, and then has been rehired to do offshore wind installations because they've spent most of their career putting in huge metal things in the sea that don't fall over. Yeah. So that's their skill set.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're now, I think their income was doubled. I mean, that was the thing, was that I think I only want to say that in that it's a very attractive prospect. You know, if you're looking for, if you're in your early stages of your career, it's a, you know, and you're working in a perfectly decent job, even in like supermarket logistics. It's not necessarily in the energy field. I guess you could still find a role within the wider energy sector.
Definitely. I think the thing that we get approached for most by people who are outside of the sector is I've got to work. I enjoy work. I want to be challenged, but I want to do something a bit more meaningful.
Yeah.
And that's the opportunity that Cleantech has. It can provide you with something where you're contributing to something bigger and with a bit of purpose. But fortunately, you can also do very well from it from a salary perspective. So why not?
No, that is fantastic. So you're going to be Fully Charged live in Farnborough and Amsterdam. Yep. So you'll have a stand there, and there'll be people can come and see you, and it'll be very.
The blue trainers after.
You get your special blue trainers. Yeah, I'm quite jealous of the blue trainers. Yeah, I've got to look into that. And then and hopefully San Diego as well, which we're going to go and see very soon. What's going on there? But it sounds very exciting and big.
I mean, we saw, I know it was a long time ago, but in Austin with the first Fully Charged in the US, the interest in the US is phenomenal.
It's amazing, isn't it?
In some ways, the future mobility is slightly behind the UK, but there's so much going on. So we certainly anticipate being in San Diego and hopefully being able to launch the business, if not before, then certainly at San Diego for the US market.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, David and Stephen. I really can't explain how pleased I am that we're all here announcing that. I mean, it is amazing. It's it is the beginning of something I think really special. Really, very proud to be in any way connected with you, because I think what you're doing, it's so obvious. That's the thing. When we first talked, I went, oh yeah, it's absolutely obvious. There's a lot of people that watch Fully Charged that are interested in that area that also work. I mean, we know from experience, so many people who work in the energy sector are keen viewers of it. Anyway, that's all for this episode. If you are currently seeking a new role, a change of career, or even studying at university, go and take a look at the Fully Charged Recruitment website, and all the links will be in the show notes for this episode, because now is the time to get in touch with the team and find out what the next role in a green and sustainable energy company could be for you. Or indeed, if you are that green and sustainable company, then please do speak to David or Stephen about how they can help you grow your teams. And all the links you need, as I've said, are in the descriptions below. And if you're interested in subscribing or supporting the channel, all the links that are there too. And as always, if you have been, thank you for listening.